the podcast exclusively for association executives and members. Each week, Jeff interviews association executives about their victories, igniting new ideas for you to create greater value for your members. And now, Jeff Tippett.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Tippett. I'm grateful that you've joined us for today's episode of Victory by Association. Today's show is brought to you by Persuasion Publishers. Persuasion Publishers disrupts the traditional model of publishing. We empower you to get your story from idea to bookshelf in just 2 months with a high-quality product at an affordable cost. Learn more at persuasionpublishers.com. Check out our show notes for the link. Today, I'm excited to welcome our guest, Michael Levitt. Welcome, Michael.
Great to be with Jeff.
How are you doing today?
I am awesome. I'm awesome every day, and I'm very thankful for that.
And I'm with you on that. Well, give us a little high-level understanding here of your background, things that you've done with associations in your past.
Yeah, one of the key components of my career in associations was working for a 100-year-old plus association based out of Toronto. Now, it was all across Canada. They were involved and still are involved in the supply chain area, so procurement, purchasing. Now, as you can imagine, 100 years ago, procurement and purchasing in supply chain looked a lot different than it does today. That was before the Amazons of the world. Everything was kind of shuttled around via horse and buggy and a variety of other things, maybe train. And now, we're using drones to deliver packages to our balcony. So it's quite a change. And they've been able to keep on top of it. And, during my time there, it was an exciting time. And there were some challenges that we overcome, and it made a huge difference in the surviving of this organization.
Well, let me pick up a couple of things you said there. First of all, Toronto is a beautiful city. I had a chance to speak there a couple of months ago and really enjoyed myself there. And I did get to speak, I think it was last year, for a supply chain, international supply chain management group. So that was a lot of fun. And your final thing about drones, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and just yesterday, we had a demonstration here of autonomous drones that are taxis. So these are designed to move people from one location to the next autonomously in a George Jetson style drone, really. So it was pretty cool to see that. Well, Michael, tell us something interesting or unique about you that maybe people don't know, they wouldn't find necessarily on your LinkedIn profile.
Couple things real quick. Dual citizen. So I'm originally from the United States and live in Canada for 15 years now. Second thing is I've lived in 3 of the 6 original NHL cities. So Detroit, Chicago, and Toronto. So I've worked in 5 of the 6. I have not spent any time in Montreal yet, but I will. It's difficult being a Red Wings fan in Toronto, but I do it covertly.
I hear that. People laughed at us in the South here when the Canes came to town, but they have developed a pretty strong support base here in the city of Raleigh.
I'm not surprised. North Carolina loves their sports, and rightfully so. And we just got through the bowl season, and watching all of that, and March Madness is coming, and there's a few teams from that state that seem to do fairly well in the tournament year after year after year after year. So it's always an exciting time. So no, people from North Carolina truly are sports fans, and I love watching their teams for sure.
Well, here in the Triangle area, we're mostly people that are coming to the area. There are very few natives here at the Triangle, which is the Raleigh, Durham, Cary, Chapel Hill area. And you learned early on when you moved to this area, you pick a team, NC State, Carolina, or Duke. You pick one and you lay down that stake early on when you move here, because that's just how life is here in the Triangle. Well, tell us a little bit about the association victory you'd like to discuss today.
The organization I was with when I joined, they were running into some financial difficulties with their membership organizations. As I said, it was Canada-wide, so we had institutes all across the country. And the national office, of course, was funded by these regional locations. And the budget that the national office was operating under had been the same budget for 7 years, and it was a flat budget. So if your institute did well, great. If you had a lousy year, too bad. You still owe however much you owe to the national office. everyone involved looked at this as not sustainable in the long term. So we went back and forth, a lot of conversations back and forth with the institutes. And when I came on board, the relationship with the institutes wasn't good. And I'm saying that politely. I think there was some hatred involved and all kinds of commentary and everything like that. It was not a good situation. So the first thing the national office did from a senior leadership standpoint is all the senior leaders took a 20% pay cut. Now, we did that because we realized if we didn't do something dramatic, that 20% pay cut would likely be a 100% pay cut. So that got the attention of the institutes. And then we finally came together and brought all of the leaders of these institutes in on a Saturday in downtown Toronto. And we spent all day hammering out a new funding model for the national office that would be as fair and equitable to everybody as possible. Long story short, without going into any details, we more or less created kind of a salary tax or salary cap type of thing. So there was a couple institutes, larger ones, that always were profitable, and then the smaller ones were always losing money. So basically what happened, similar to like I'll use a New York Yankees example, they're, printing money, and there's some teams like Florida, for example, that aren't. So basically it offsets things to make sure that everybody could still play without, being, having a lot of difficulty as far as funding things. So what happened after we came up with this new budget, within a couple of years, all the institutes were doing a lot better, and the revenues for the organization jumped up roughly 40% just by making some tweaks and creating the opportunities and stronger marketing for these institutes to actually be successful in what they were doing. Because as I had mentioned before, there was no communication between the national office and the institutes. Therefore, there was no support, no collaboration, no ideas, no concepts, and it just was a toxic situation. And turning that around, I think, was one of those big moments in my career where I realized, okay, it all boils down to communication, seeking to understand the other person's point of view. And if you do that in everything you do in life, it lowers the temperature. It makes it a little bit easier to sort through challenges and makes it more collaborative across the board.
Absolutely. Well, you give us a couple of cool points here that I want to go back and talk about. First of all, talk to me a little bit about coming together with the group and like facing something as daunting as what you had to face. Tell me about the leadership aspect of leading and moving the group through that. What was that like?
Well, I think the pay cut that the national office did voluntarily, it wasn't a case where it was requested. We looked at this and said, okay, we need to get everybody at the table. So once we did that, that took notice. They're like, okay, wait a minute, the national office is actually serious about this, and everyone started to come on board. And there was a couple institutes that historically were the most vocal, and they were the ones that would end up paying more on an annual basis than they were before, and they agreed to it.
Yeah.
So getting somebody to agree to pay more for the greater good was a huge moment for everybody involved. And when we left that meeting that day with basically the framework of what we were going to do, after a long Saturday in a conference room in a hotel, usually you're drained and you're looking for the nearest pub to, drown your sorrows in, or, eat or whatever. But it was more of that was a worthwhile experience. And again, they just, celebrated their, I think, 102nd anniversary now as an organization, and they're doing well from everything that I'm hearing, and navigating around, as I alluded to before, all of these changes that we're seeing in supply chain and procurement and the association and the needs of, let's not forget the membership here.
Mm-hmm.
The members' needs in 2020 are different than they were in 1920.
Sure.
So it's adapting and being really engaging with the membership, which is one of the things that they are really good at, is engaging with their membership from a social media standpoint, at the conference, and all points in between.
One of the things I talk about on stage is how we have to do things that stand out, things that really capture attention. and just as an outsider looking in and hearing your story here, voluntarily taking a 20% cut in salary is something to me that like stands out. And it's like one of those moments where, oh my gosh, we better pay attention because this group is serious here.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those things, obviously a very difficult conversation, but it helps that my original career was in accounting. So I knew as much as I try to forget that stuff, I can't. It's kind of embedded in there. But I realized that, you know, do you want a 20% cut or do you want a 100% cut? And I think most people are able to, make that choice wisely unless there was something else that they want to do. And there was again, with the organization being around as long as it was, there was an ownership amongst all of us saying, okay, we're nurturing this thing. None of us have been here 100 years. We won't be here in another 100 years. So we want to make sure that the ship continues because we all believe in it. We see value in it, the membership, and society benefits by having a strong supply chain system, because moving goods and services across our globe is crucial for everything that we do. So yeah, I agree. That was one of those things like, okay, how can we get somebody's attention? And it worked. It definitely worked at home too, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, we survived it. Thankfully I don't spend money or do you on shampoo. So
that's right.
So we save thousands on that.
That's exactly right. So the question here isn't, hey, do you take a 20% cut or do you not take a 20% cut? Is do you take a 20% or do you take a 100%? Now I'll use that to frame up your answer here. Well, let me talk a little bit just here for a minute on something that you said, because this is something that's huge to me, and I talk about this all the time from stage, and that's in carrying on conversations with other people. When you said to seek to understand.
Mm-hmm.
I oftentimes, and this is true with people that are in sales, it's true with people that are in leadership, oftentimes we walk in looking to be understood and like making sure that, hey, we get our point and that we're there with all the things that we want to say, versus having a mindset of like, I just want to understand you. I want to understand where you are, what you value, what's important to you. I think that from my perspective, that turns around the sales process. It turns around leadership. It is a paradigm shift. It is a mindset shift that turning that around, in my opinion, just totally changes the game.
I agree. And it's something that, I've implemented in my life, and in a sales type of situation, someone calls you and they say, okay, we're looking to purchase this service that my organization offers. Okay, well, I can easily say it's however much, here's the link, send the invoice here, pay it, and away we go. No, I need to know why they want it, what's going on in their life. So that way, when I'm serving them, because selling is serving,
Yep.
When you're serving them for what they need. Of course, you ask questions and you get understanding of what's going on, because there may be some things that they need that they don't know that they need yet. And that's not trying to upsell per se. It's more of I notice this, and if you address this, you're going to fix 5 or 6 things instead of just the one thing that you're bringing in. And you give them that opportunity if they want to go that route, or maybe they want to wait. But you give them that opportunity, and it's again an opportunity when you seek to understand what their position is and what their issues are. Again, you're serving them easier than just going in and say, here it is, this is how much it costs, take it or leave it. And that's not helping anybody, and that's not a good exchange. And the know, like, and trust factor doesn't even exist in that type of equation.
That's exactly right. We are totally on the same page with that. Well, Michael, one last meaty question here, if you will. Tell us out any one last thing, life lessons that you've learned in the association world. Just one other point you'd like to toss out you think other association executives might take value from.
I think it's key just to remember, what the membership wants, and ask them that question often. When you have an opportunity to engage with your members, do it. It doesn't matter what level you are in the organization, do it, because these people are giving their time, their money, resources, whatnot, to your association. Find out what they want, because they're the eyes and ears of whatever sector you're in. And they may say something that could be an additional product offering or service the organization could provide they could dramatically shift those individuals' lives and their work lives and the organizations they work for. It's just constantly be in communication with them and find out, what are some things that you can do as an association to help them do the things that they need to accomplish.
Love it. Roll up the sleeves, have those conversations. Well, Michael, how's the best way for people to reach out to if they have questions or want to follow up with some more?
Yeah, best way to find me is go to breakfastleadership.com. I'm on social media under the name Be Fast Leadership, and I always say don't put that on a license plate because or drive a red vehicle with that license plate. That would be bad. But Be Fast Leadership for on all the social media platforms, and breakfastleadership.com for the website.
Great. We'll add that in today's show note. Michael, thank you again for being my guest. Thank you all for listening. And I'll see you again next week as we discover another victory by association.
You've been listening to Victory by Association with Jeff Tippett. If you've enjoyed, please subscribe, rate, and review. Be sure to check out the show notes for links relating to this episode. For information about becoming a sponsor or guest, please email podcast@jefftippett.com.